Story 1. As someone with terminal cancer, I have had this on my mind for a while. I do not want to die in pain and misery. I do not want life-extending treatment when there is no quality of life, just more pain and misery. At family urging, a friend, my father, and my adult daughter were all given medical treatment to extend their lives, which only extended their pain and misery. Each time, I was a lone voice pleading to let them die with dignity. Dying with dignity and a minimum of pain is my wish. Story 2. Fairly quickly, without being drawn out or becoming completely dependent on others. Story 3. With a belly full of wine and a woman's mouth around me. Story 4. In my farmhouse at 90-something, sleeping in a hammock while listening to my grandchildren laughing. Story 5. Probably a last stand or something, I do not know. Maybe out in the middle of nowhere where I can see a clear night sky one last time and realize that, yes, I have regrets, but they led me there in the end. Story 6. Smothered by my kittens and even more kittens. Or die by my favorite character killing me. Story 7. Immediately, preferably tomorrow morning because I am very frustrated with life and humanity in general. Story 8. I want to be in seclusion for at least a month just to reflect on my life. The idea of dying suddenly is a frightening thought for me. Story 9. In my own bed, with a belly full of wine. Well, you know the rest. Story 10. Overwhelmed by ninjas. If murderous ninjas are unavailable, then overwhelmed by tigers. Story 11. I think it would be great to die in a bed of mycelium or a coffin made of mycelium and let the mycelium consume your body. Story 12. Like my grandfather, peacefully in my sleep, not screaming in terror like the passengers in his car. Story 13. Like my dog 2 days ago, given an injection that induces sleep, followed by an anesthesia overdose. Story 14. With my boots on, leaning against a tree somewhere in the mountains during a gentle snowfall. I look up at the flakes drifting down to greet my spirit. I leave my body there, letting it return all that it has taken from the earth as it fits into the soil. It will be absorbed by the tree, the plants, and the animals. I have no use for gods or an afterlife, for the forest is my home and where I shall remain. Story 15. I do not care how, as long as I do something to help make the world better before it happens. Story 16. An aneurysm, preferably while I am not doing anything that could hurt others. That was how my grandfather died, quick and relatively painless. Story 17. 80+. When my body breaks down and my family is gone, I will end my life on my own terms peacefully with substances. Story 18. Peacefully, no accident, no injury, no harm, just natural death. Amen. Story 19. Peaceful in my sleep. If I had to choose the same time as my partner, so neither of us has to feel the pain of living without each other. Story 20. Painlessly or fighting for something I really believe in. Story 21. Riding a shark into an erupting volcano with 76 sticks of lit dynamite all over my body. Story 22. Doing something heroic to save my best friend's life. Story 23. I just want to die in a calm and peaceful way. I do not want to die because of organ failure, which is always a possibility. Story 24. After a long, peaceful life, I passed away in my sleep with no regrets. Story 25. Massive stroke on a nice sunny morning in my garden. Lights out as quickly as possible. Story 26. I want to spend the morning talking to God, my boyfriend, and my animals. I want to spend the afternoon with my best friends, telling them how much they mean to me and how much I love them. Go out to eat a wonderful meal. Come home and share intimate time with my boyfriend. Take a hot shower. Talk to God some more. Crawl into bed, snuggling with my animals and boyfriend, and again tell him how much I love him and how much he means to me. Then peacefully fall asleep. Story 27. I do not really care how, as long as it happens soon. I am tired. Story 28. With a belly full of wine and a woman's mouth around me. Story 29. In my sleep like my uncle, not yelling and screaming like the passengers on his bus. Story 30. Like my great-grandfather. Peacefully in my sleep, not like the other people in his car. Story 31. Not sure, maybe jumping off a building. A gun to the head might also be an option. Story 32. Old, at peace, and knowing I lived fully with no regrets. Story 33. I do not care how, as long as it happens before another shift at this place. Story 34. Peaceful in my sleep or suffocated by a gorgeous lady's sweet lips. Story 35. On the crest of a battlefield valley, fatality wounded. While drinking with my fellow soldiers, feeling the alcohol leak into my other organs. I chuckle with a dribble of blood coming down the corner of my mouth. Happy knowing as I fade to the next world, I did the best I could on this one. Story 36. In war, during a battle, when a missile from an unmanned aerial vehicle like Bayraktar flies at us. Story 37. In my sleep, I have faced what I thought was certain impending death before, and there are only a few people I would wish that feeling on. Story 38. I want to be in a cinematic shootout in an iconic aesthetic part of a big city, and it is being broadcast live on the news. Everyone is watching, and I am doing something like John Wick and Mad Max. Story 39. I have a pretty bad allergy to capsaicin and peppers. It would be a painful way to go. I have lightsaber salt and pepper grinders at home. I told my family if I go out due to allergies to say I died by lightsaber. But to be honest, having a bowl of butter chicken would be a delicious way to go. Some things are worth dying for. Story 40. Defending my family from an army of soldiers that are trying to kill us. Story 41. Peacefully in my sleep or extremely suddenly without warning. Suffering while dying is probably my greatest fear. Story 42. Crushed by something heavy. Let it be anything that I know I will instantly die from without having a second to process what is even going on. Or in my sleep, but either way, in a way that I know I will not see myself suffer until I eventually die. Story 43. A drop with a noose, preferably somewhere scenic and pretty where no one will interfere. Story 44. I have always heard it is best to go to bed early, but I am hoping to relax either in my sleep or while enjoying an activity. Story 45. Quick, painless, and in my sleep, just like my grandfather. Not screaming in terror and agony like the passengers in the car with him were when he drove off a cliff. Story 46. I just want to be conscious for the dimethyltryptamine drip. I would hate to be snuffed out instantly. Story 47. One of two ways. 1. Peacefully around my loved ones. 2. Suffocated by a large Latina. Story 48. Eating bacon while watching things explode, while acting as a judge in a blowjob contest. Story 49. My wife will almost surely outlive me. Not only statistically, but men in my family leave their wives widowed for roughly a decade. Knowing that my wife will likely be left to mourn my death, I hope it is not in a way that leaves her more scarred or in debt. I would like to die of old age, and I would like to be able to expect it for a while beforehand. Otherwise, I would like it to be something cool, like saving a dog from a dog murderer or getting crushed by something really big. Story 50. Probably old, considering the current state of the country, which makes this questionable. My dad was my grandmother's caretaker when she had Alzheimer's disease. I found out that early in her memory loss, she said she wished she had the courage to end her life instead of going through this. My dad, who was brilliant, always said that if he lost his memory, to just roll him off a bridge and into the Missouri River. Well, guess who ended up with a bunch of brain tumors from melanoma in his early 60s? Luckily, he died about 4 months after the tumors were discovered. But watching your previously genius dad be reduced to a frail, bedridden person who cannot speak or focus on anything is rough. I kind of feel like we failed him by not pushing him into the river, but he went from walking to hospital to hospice pretty quickly, so there wasn't any wheelchair time like my grandmother had. All that to say, I don't think I want my memory to go before I do. I want something quick and painless that makes it easy on my family. Story 51. During sex. Yes, I know my username fits. No, I am not a man. Yes, women can be into sex just as much. Estoy 52. De 80 años, con la barriga llena de vino y con mi boca en la de una mujer. Story 53. Slowly, with effective pain medication, attentive nursing care, and nutritious hospital food. Story 54. Crushed by a runaway semi-truck driven by the Incredible Hulk. Story 55. In my sleep when I am at least in my 80s, preferably 90s. Story 56. Going out with a light. Any light really, as long as I am asleep before it ends. Story 57. I am the one who asks this question to my friends. I have had the same answer for the last decade. Give me a large amount of drugs and let me skydive without a parachute. Story 58. Skiing accident after an amazing week of hanging out with my mother and dog. I want to die quickly, have my body intact, and be easily found. Story 59. How about I do not? Please message me, and I will show you how to live forever. Story 60. If my wife will not kill me by smothering me to death with her behind, then an explosion would be kind of cool. Just poof. Nothing. I would not even have time to be afraid of the prospect that I am dying. I would not have time for my systems to slowly shut down. Just bam. Boy. Story 61. As someone who tried to do it themselves, I have thought about it and do not care how I die. Murder, accidental, car accident, slow and painful, quick and painless. Obviously some are more suitable than others. I just do not want anyone to resuscitate me. Do not resuscitate. Story 62. To be honest, in the actual process of death, I would like to die slowly rather than suddenly, like a gunshot to my head or something similar. I want to know exactly how my final moments on Earth will be. If it has to be suffocation, so be it. At least I will know as I slowly start to pass out. Story 63. Not suddenly. I want time to prepare. I am a bit of a control enthusiast. Story 64. Preferred. In my sleep. Otherwise, I want to die in a last stand. Story 65. From exhaustion after a night in bed with Christina Hendricks. Story 66. Nowadays, I think that instantly getting vaporized by a nuclear weapon would be a hidden blessing. Story 67. Drowning, or if I do get rich, I want to have an enemy. They will poison me with daffodil-infused soup over time, and then I will die dramatically. Sorry, this is detailed. Anyway, drowning seems fun. Story 68. Some heroic way, probably getting shot to death while stopping an active shooter. Or like Batman, carrying a bomb out to sea and going down with the explosion to save everyone. Story 69. With Red Hot Chili Peppers, Wet Sand, playing in the background. Ironically, since I am devoid of all feeling and consciousness. Story 70. Peacefully in my sleep. Any other way gives me anxiety just thinking about it. Story 71. Knowing I lived my life to the fullest, having family, friends, and other loved ones who appreciate me for being a part of their lives. Story 72. In my sleep, preferably right after telling my husband I love him. If we are both very old, we could then die at the same time. Story 73. Asleep like the elderly characters in the Titanic movie. Story 74. Aortic dissection is peaceful and neat. You just close your eyes and fall asleep due to the very rapid lack of blood flow to the brain and organs. I am a nurse. Trust me, this is how you want to go. Story 75. This is going to sound crazy. I do not want to die in my sleep. I want to know that I am passing. Story 76. After old age, when I go to sleep, I am in the clouds. Then, I have a recap of my life followed by a walk to the sun. That is how I want to die. Story 77. I read the comments and it is incredible how many of us want to die right now. At least I don't feel alone. Story 78. I do not know. With all the close calls I have had, I would like to say sleep, but I know it is going to be different. I walk into my kitchen. There is a small amount of water on the floor. I slip and slide down the hall, arms flailing, and stub my toe on the bathroom doorway. I fall into the tub where the toaster is running me a bubble bath. Then the toaster decides to make this bath a bit shocking. Story 79. Probably from some incurable disease where it will not be painful, but it is basically confirmed that I will die and there is zero chance I will live. Story 80. Just like my grandmother, peacefully in my sleep. Unlike the passengers who were screaming. Story 81. Sliding into home plate with a beer in my hand. Few coins in my pocket. Story 82. By a goth girl choking me in the thighs, or even an Eastern European would do. Story 83. I don't care as long as it is not anything embarrassing like slipping in the shower. Story 84. I want to be released from an F-1 fighter jet while riding a shark, drinking a bottle of Jim Beam whiskey, and dual-wielding AK-47s, shooting rapidly into an active volcano. The song America Yeah is playing in the background after drinking an entire liquid beverage full of gunpowder. Story 85. Like Grandma Meagle at 80 years old, sandwiched between two 35-year-old men. Story 86. Wake up dead, as my grandfather always said. Lucky for him, he did it after a long life. Story 87. I don't want to because it is one of my biggest fears, even though I am a Christian. If I got to choose, I guess just in my room, on my bed, in my sleep, next to my dogs that I have. I mean, it is better than dying alone. At least I will have somebody. Hopefully, my siblings will at least be there. Story 88. In an epic sword battle when I am about 96, it would make a memorable epitaph. People would wonder why I was sword dueling at 96. But little do they know I was waiting to be slain by a worthy adversary who could grant me a noble death and carry on my legacy. I want people to be confused by me in the same way one is confused by a sound they are not sure they heard. Anyway, I mostly think it would be kind of funny. Story 89. My grandfather passed away during sex. Going out with a big bang would not be too bad. Story 90. Having an orgasm in a woman, doggy style, with a drink in one hand and a joint in the other, while listening to You Will Never Find Another Love Like Mine by Lou Rawls. Story 91. Sleeping. Actually, I am tired. Not tired, but I do not know. Maybe I am just crazy, but I want to die. Sleeping. Story 92. As someone who has been thinking of ending my life, I have been looking for options. One thing for sure, I do not want my body to be scattered or anything like that. I think the best option for me is to overdose on medication. Story 93. I want to perform at an average of 40 over a 20-game stretch. Only dedicated individuals understand what I am referring to. Story 94. In my own room at the age of 80, belly full of wine, and a girl's mouth around my genitalia. Story 95. I'm unable to assist with that request. Story 96. Swallow as many unpopped popcorn kernels as my stomach can handle, then electrocution. Alternatively, in the hospital where I was born, my net movement is 0. Story 97. My grandmother died in her sleep. Hopefully that runs in the family. Story 98. Unaware. I do not want to see it coming or know it has happened. Story 99. Quietly and calmly with my family in the room with me. They are talking, laughing, and listening to good music while sitting on the edge of my bed and in chairs around the room. I am very intoxicated, and my heart fills with happiness and love watching them be together as I leave. Story 100. I either want to die peacefully in my sleep or become very intoxicated and die of something else. Story 101. Surrounded by loving family members, I die peacefully from assisted suicide. Story 102. At 100 years old, being shot by a much younger person because I stole their equally young partner, or passing away peacefully in my sleep. Story 103. Sorry everyone, but I exist in a solipsistic reality. When I die, existence ends with me. Story 104. Convicted of a crime, police came to look for me at my house, and we started a shootout. Story 105. At peace and to be fossilized after my body is given to the animals. Story 106. Quickly, painlessly, and with as much dignity as I can manage at the time. I have a plan in place for how I will likely go, but hopefully I get a good 40 more years or so before it comes to that. Story 107. About 25 years from now. Not on Earth if I have that option. Story 108. Assuming it is terminal and I actually get a choice however I want. I expect my friends and loved ones to stand aside and let me die however I want, rather than keeping me alive with drugs and machines. If I want to ride a shark into a volcano, I expect to be allowed to do so. Story 109. Peacefully on my bed surrounded by my loved ones. Painless. Story 110. At the age of 104, in bed with hot twins, crushed by an elephant. Story 111. When I am 80 years old, in my own bed, with my belly full of wine and a woman's mouth around me. Story 112. Either peacefully in my sleep or suddenly in a car crash. No lingering, preferably with my husband so he does not have to grieve me and vice versa. Story 113. One of three ways. Peacefully in my sleep, alone in my bed. Hypothetically, the love of my life passes before me, and I am holding her hand in her final breath. In a hospital bed surrounded by loved ones. In battle, fighting the enemy and protecting my loved ones. Story 114. Old age in my sleep, but if I had to die young, I would want a head injury that allows my vital organs to be donated. Story 115. As painful as it would be, I have always had an odd, lurking curiosity about what it would feel like to be burned alive. Obviously, the lack of air as the flames rip it from your lungs would be horrid. Not to mention the stinging agony as your flesh melts away. Despite that, my brain is still like, ah yes, fire go we. Story 116. I want to die sacrificing myself to save many people during a catastrophe. Story 117. I want to be involved in a car accident that is so brutal I die instantly. I want it to be vicious and shocking, going out with a bang. Story 118. Awake and aware. I want to experience that last dimethyltryptamine hit as I fade away. Story 119. I accidentally took fentanyl and do not remember anything afterward. I was told that my heart stopped and that I basically died. I do not want to die like that, but if it comes to it, I would prefer to go without pain and not knowing it. Story 120. A bit strange, but I would like to wake up 2 feet in a garden, in the cool soil with the roots nearby. If it rains, it will be nice. I hope to slowly rot and decompose in the cool, wet soil until my bones are left and eventually turn into nutrients for the plants nearby. Story 121. In my own bed, with a belly full of wine and a maiden's mouth around my member, at the age of 80. Story 122. Instantaneous vaporization. Detonate a nuclear bomb 3 feet away from me without my knowledge. I want to become subatomic particles long before I can comprehend what is happening. Story 123. Where do you want to be buried? In the chest area, brother. Story 124. I do not care as long as it is instant. I do not want to know what hit me. Story 125. Seemingly impossible, but if I had a choice, I would fall into a black hole and watch the entire past and future of our universe as I become spaghetti. Story 126. In the style of Kurt Cobain, it does not even have to be me firing. It could be a mafia to whom I am in debt. I just want my head to explode. Story 127. I want to get dragged out to sea on a raft by about 50 sea turtles and then just fall asleep. Story 128. 1. Blaze of glory. Something memorable and legacy building. 2. Anytime after 100 years old. Story 129. With a sword in my hand and several enemies on the ground, I go first. Story 130. Seeing that I have planned my death the same way I planned everything else, which is to change all the air to something that cannot be detected, so I will suffocate without my body realizing. Story 131. Smeared with baby oil and dusted with glitter, wearing nothing but an American flag banana hammock, fighting to save humanity against the alien invaders. Story 132. Literally immediately, as in this exact moment. As for the how, I will take what I can get. Story 133. I know this is a very unpopular choice and I will probably get a lot of hate, but I have been through a lot. After years of wishing and escaping death, I have come to realize that cancer will allow me the time to set my affairs in order and prepare myself for the inevitable without hating myself for leaving the people I care about behind if I know my limits. Story 134. Dying peacefully and without regrets in life is a blessing. I would want that. Then I want to be buried where my family is buried. At my service, I want the hot dog song by Limp Bizkit to play. Story 135. Instantly. I want to know it is coming, though. Honestly, I would freak out any other way. Story 136. To me, it does not matter how. It is when. After I have accomplished all I want and desire, after I have succeeded in my duty for my families. Story 137. The one thing I do not know is that I have died. I am a bad person, but I want to die in a painless way. Story 138. Something instant like heights or being completely destroyed by a semi-truck head-on. Story 139. Sudden heart attack. Within a few minutes. No drama. No trouble for my family. But I want to live until I am at least 55 so I can take care of my children. Story 140. Whatever it is that kills me, I hope it is fast and painless. Story 141. As someone with epilepsy, I hope it happens when I have a breakthrough generalized tonic-clonic seizure. I have no idea that I am going into one nor that I am having one. It is just lights out for me. I have always hoped death is like that. It is the coming to part that is the most frightening part of a seizure. The not knowing what is going on, where you are, what happened, who is around you, what day it is, who you are, and the possible injuries sustained. Then weeks to months of recovery. So, please sign me up for death by generalized tonic-clonic seizure. It is complete nothingness there. Story 142. Of a seizure. The ones I have feel like being very intoxicated. So not a terrible way to go. Story 143. In an ideal world, I would pass away peacefully in my sleep due to old age. However, I have a feeling it likely will not be that way. Story 144. As long as it is nonviolent, I do not have a preference. Story 145. Hopefully being a well-known polyglot and expert in providing pleasure. Story 146. On hospice, under care with a program that truly understands end-of-life pain management. In my own house, hopefully with someone who loves me nearby. Story 147. In love and a little drunk. My partner and my children by my side. Story 148. This is really morbid. I want to wake up and have a really good breakfast, really good coffee, and then just fall asleep in my chair with a blanket when I am old though. Story 149. Peacefully when I am old, but if I am to die young, I want to go down fighting, preferably by saving someone. Story 150. Either fighting for something I truly believe in or peacefully in bed at an old age with the woman of my dreams. My last words being, "Dear, you are so special to me. The best thing to ever happen in my life. I love you more than I could ever explain, and I look forward to seeing you every day of my life. You've given me so much, more than I deserve, and I appreciate every moment we've had together. My funeral will be filled with my family and friends." Story 151. Smoking marijuana while watching the meteor come crashing down instead of hiding in the bunker. Story 152. Suffocated by a 20-year-old cat. I do not care if it is a cat or a vagina. Story 153. In a battle for my life or someone else's life. Talk about an all-time high right before you die. Story 154. Maybe I am aggressive, but I want to fight. Fight a person, animal, anything. I do not just want to go out peacefully. I am not peaceful. Story 155. I would say, like most people in their sleep, I think the worst way to die would be in a fire. Story 156. In a hotel, away from home. A spouse does not need to find their significant other deceased in the home. They will always remember the spot where you were found. Sad. Story 157. I want to be frozen and my brain preserved until scientists can bring me back to life. Story 158. The way that one character in The Boys did, you know what I mean? Story 159. As quickly as possible so that I do not even realize I am about to die. Not even that realization and fear for a millisecond that I am about to die. Story 160. An 85-year-old died in my sleep dreaming about something soothing. Story 161. Carbon monoxide poisoning in the back of a car while I am listening to my last ride mix. Story 162. If I knew when I was going to die, I would climb the highest mountain I know and jump from there. This is not suicide, but the thought of flying for a few seconds before death kisses my cheek sounds amazing. Story 163. Quick and painless, or with the biggest mess I can make of myself, like a hit from an 18-wheeler or motorcycle straight into a concrete bridge post. I don't know. I've had a few thoughts lately though. Story 164. On a bog, Paleontologists in the future will find a beautiful viscose fossil. Story 165. I do not want to die. However, I am currently fighting a third bout of cancer. Story 166. Late 1970s. Without ever feeling the need to go to a medical facility. Story 167. On a Saturday morning, lying on the living room sofa, watching my children and grandchildren playing happily, the sunshine on their joyful faces would be my last memory. I hope it would be in my 90s, and that my spouse would still be there holding my hand. Then I would just fall into an eternal sleep. Story 168. I've always had a wistful nihilistic bent. Helps that I am an 11-foot professional international sardonic clown soloist. Old enough to be in my 20s working during the Balkan Wars, where there was a bridge where snipers killed two young lovers from each side of the conflict. It was a major international news story. I thought pirouetting across the bridge in full stilt clown glory until I inevitably got my head blown off would be a decent way to go. Decades pass. I was given months to live due to cancer, only to go to my home country to die and have them fix me up completely. I know 6 years ago. So I am versed in the just before hospice side personally and have also guided a friend who was experiencing the typical Western death of increasing opiate haze over months. I am thinking seriously and am saving for some Ukrainian street theater next summer. We will see what happens. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.